The envelope arrived on a Tuesday, cream-coloured, expensive, with her name written in elaborate script that made Sarah's stomach turn to ice. She knew what day it was. She'd never forget. 3 years ago today, Alpha Cade had stood before the entire Silvercrest pack and destroyed her. "Open it, Mama!" 2-year-old Finn tugged at her worn jeans, his chubby fingers reaching for the pretty paper. Sarah's hands trembled as she set her healing herbs aside. Through the window of her small cabin, she could see the Silvercrest territory in the distance, close enough to serve the border packs who needed her medicines, far enough that she didn't have to see him. She shouldn't open it. She should throw it in the fire and forget it existed. But her fingers were already sliding under the seal. "Alpha Cade Thorne requests the honour of your presence at the presentation ceremony for his heirs, twins Garrett and Elise Thorne." The words blurred, Sarah's chest constricted, phantom pain blooming where her mate Bond used to live before Cade had severed it like cutting a rope. Before he'd stood in the pack hall and announced she was broken, worthless, that no alpha could build a legacy with a barren mate. "Mama!" 3-year-old Ashton appeared at her side, concern in his bright eyes that sometimes flashed gold when he got excited or angry. "You're sad." "I'm fine, baby." The lie tasted bitter. A smaller card slipped from the invitation, handwritten. Cade's bold, aggressive script. "Come see what a real Luna provides her alpha. Remember what you could never give me." The air left Sarah's lungs. "Let me see that." Maven snatched the invitation before Sarah could stop her. Her best friend's face went purple as she read. "That bastard. That absolute—" She glanced at the 3 little boys now wrestling on the floor and lowered her voice. "He's doing this on purpose." "Of course he is." Sarah's voice came out steadier than she felt. "Leanna's perfect, fertile, everything I wasn't." "Stop." Maven gripped her shoulders. "You were never the problem. He was, is, will always be." But the old wound throbbed anyway. For 2 years Sarah had tried, had visited every healer, every medicine woman, every witch who might help her conceive, had endured Cade's growing coldness, the pack's whispers, the pitying looks, had felt her mate's disappointment through their bond until it became a constant ache. Then came that terrible day. "A Luna's first duty is to provide heirs," Cade had announced, his voice echoing through the pack hall. "Sarah has failed. Our bond was a mistake the moon blessed me to correct." He'd severed it right there. The pain had dropped her to her knees, a tearing, burning agony as the bond ripped away. She'd felt him close off completely, his presence in her mind and heart simply gone. "You're broken," he'd said, looking down at her with cold eyes. "I need a real Luna." The pack had watched her crawl out of the hall. No one had helped. "Sarah." Maven's voice pulled her back to the present. "You're not actually considering going?" Sarah looked at her sons. Finn had grabbed his brother Cole's toy truck, and now Cole's eyes were flashing that eerie gold as he growled. Ashton separated them with the easy authority of an eldest child. His small voice commanding them to share. They were everything. Strong, healthy, powerful in ways that made Maven nervous, though she never said it aloud. Sarah had found out she was pregnant a month after the rejection. Some cosmic joke, her wolf finally quickening when it was too late. She'd hidden it, moved to the border territories, delivered them with only Maven's help. 3 boys. 3 impossibly strong pups with alpha potential radiating from them like heat. 3 children Cade had never met, would never claim, because he'd severed their bond before they existed. "I'm going," Sarah heard herself say. "What? No, absolutely not. It's a trap." "Not a trap. Just cruelty." Sarah's jaw tightened. "He wants to humiliate me. Wants me to see his perfect life with his perfect mate and his perfect twins." "Then don't give him the satisfaction." "I won't." Something hard settled in Sarah's chest. Not quite anger, not quite pain. I'm going to show him exactly what he threw away." Maven stared. "You're not going to tell him? About them?" She gestured at the boys. "No." The word came out flat. "Absolute. They're mine, not his. He gave up any right when he called me broken." "Mama, where are we going?" Ashton asked, catching the tension in the air with the uncanny perception of a 3-year-old. "To see some old friends, baby. Is the mean man going to be there?" Finn's small voice made Sarah's heart crack. "The one who made you cry?" She'd been so careful, had hidden her grief from them, her tears, her rage. But children knew things, felt things. "Maybe," she said carefully, "but he can't hurt Mama any more." "Good." Cole's little fist clenched. "'Cause we'd protect you." Maven helped her pack while the boys napped. 3 small suits she'd been saving for a special occasion. Her own dress, simple, but it fit her well. Showed she'd survived, even thrived in exile. No borrowed elegance, no desperate attempts to compete with Leanna's beauty. Just herself. Just enough. "You're really doing this," Maven said, folding tiny clothes. "I'm really doing this. He might try to take them." Maven's voice dropped. "If he realizes they're his, he won't." Sarah's hand stilled on Ashton's jacket. He severed the bond. There's no connection for him to sense. But they carry his bloodline, his alpha genes. Anyone with eyes can see these boys aren't normal rogue's pups. Doesn't matter. Legally, magically, they're mine. Only mine. They finished packing in silence. The ceremony was in 3 days, just enough time to travel to Silvercrest territory, check into the Neutral Zone hotel, prepare her heart for seeing him again. Seeing her. Sarah wondered if Leanna knew about the note. Probably not. Cade would hide his cruelty behind charm. The way he'd hidden his disgust with Sarah's failure behind public concern until the end. The boys woke cranky and hungry. Sarah made dinner, simple soup and bread, while they played with their wooden toys. Their laughter filled the small cabin, bright and pure, and everything good in her life now. "Mama?" Ashton appeared at her elbow, holding the cream envelope she'd left on the table. He lifted it to his nose, sniffing with a wolf pup's curious intensity. "Put that down." "Sweetheart." "It smells funny." He tilted his head, golden eyes suddenly sharp, too sharp for a 3-year-old. Like what, baby?" Ashton's small face scrunched in concentration. Then he looked up at her, confusion and something else swimming in those preternaturally aware eyes. "Mama, why does that man smell like us?" The wooden spoon clattered from Sarah's hand. "What?" "The man who sent this." Ashton held up the envelope. "He smells like me and Cole and Finn, like Pack, like—" He struggled for the word, his young mind grasping at concepts he shouldn't understand yet. "Like family." Sarah's blood turned to ice. It wasn't possible. The bond was severed. Cade had no connection to her, to them. There was no way. But Ashton's nose didn't lie. Wolf pups could scent bloodlines before they could walk. It was instinct. Primal recognition of pack and family. Her sons could smell their father on that envelope, which meant they might recognize him in person. "It's nothing, sweetheart." Sarah's voice came out strangled. "Just someone Mama used to know." "Oh." Ashton set the envelope down carefully, already losing interest the way toddlers did. "Can I have more bread?" "Of course, baby." But Sarah's hands shook as she cut the slice. Maven caught her eye from across the room, her expression mirroring Sarah's panic. This changed everything. Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 2. The Silvercrest Pack Hall looked exactly as Sarah remembered, all stone and timber, with the massive Alpha's chair on the raised platform where Cade used to hold her in his lap during gatherings, back when she'd been his cherished mate, back when she'd been wanted. "Mama, there's so many people." Finn pressed against her leg, his small hand gripping her dress. It's okay, baby. We won't stay long. Sarah smoothed his dark hair, identical to Cade's. All three boys had inherited their father's colouring. Black hair, strong features, that alpha intensity that made grown wolves do double takes. Maven walked beside her, dressed in formal blue, her presence a solid comfort. You can still leave. No one would blame you. I would. Sarah straightened her spine, lifted her chin. She'd worn deep green, Silvercrest's colour, because she wasn't ashamed, wasn't hiding. They entered through the main doors. The effect was immediate. Conversation died like someone had cut the sound. Hundreds of wolves turned, their eyes widening, mouths falling open. The shock rippled through the crowd like a physical wave. Is that Sarah? But those children... Impossible. She was barren. Look at them. Look at those boys. Ashton stood tall for a 3-year-old, his golden eyes scanning the crowd with unnerving intensity. Cole held Sarah's hand, but stared back at the wolves with a challenging tilt to his chin. And Finn, her baby, suddenly straightened and released a tiny growl at a wolf who'd moved too close. The adult wolf stepped back automatically, submission flickering across his face before confusion replaced it. Did that pup just... The aura, you feel it? They're not normal rogues' children. No, Sarah thought with fierce pride. They weren't normal anything. They were exceptional, powerful, dominant in ways that defied their age. She'd watched them command the small pack of border wolves near their cabin without even trying, their natural authority making grown wolves defer to toddlers. Now the Silvercrest pack was feeling it too. Sarah. A familiar voice, warm, surprised. Elder Mira pushed through the crowd, her weathered face breaking into a genuine smile. Child, I never thought I'd see you here again. Elder. Sarah inclined her head respectfully. Mira had been one of the few who'd shown her kindness after the rejection, who'd looked troubled by Cade's public cruelty. Mira's eyes dropped to the boys, and her smile faltered. She went very still. Oh my. Problem? Maven's voice carried an edge. No problem. But Mira's gaze had sharpened with the particular intensity of a healer reading bloodlines, sensing what others only felt. These are your sons? Yes. They're beautiful. Mira crouched down, studying each boy with professional interest. Strong, very strong for their age. Thank you. Sarah kept her voice steady even as her heart hammered. She could feel the pack's attention like physical weight, crushing and suffocating. Then the crowd parted. Cade stood on the platform, his new mate Liana beside him. She wore white and silver, traditional lunar colours, her blonde hair elaborately styled. Beautiful, Sarah noted distantly. Perfectly beautiful with her delicate features and full figure, the kind of body built for bearing children. The kind of body Sarah supposedly didn't have. But it was Cade who held her attention. Tall, commanding, his black hair slightly longer than she remembered. His grey eyes swept the crowd, landing on her with casual disinterest that became shock, then absolute stillness. He saw the boys. Every drop of colour drained from his face. His mouth opened, closed. His nostrils flared as he scented the air, and Sarah watched the exact moment recognition hit him. Primal, undeniable recognition of his own bloodline, standing 15 feet away. Cade? Liana touched his arm, her pretty face creasing with concern. What's wrong? Who is that woman? No one. Cade's voice came out rough. He cleared his throat, visibly pulling himself together. Just an old pack member. Sarah, I didn't expect you to actually attend. The casual dismissal, the implied surprise that she'd dare show her face. Classic Cade, cruel, wrapped in politeness. You invited me. Sarah kept her tone light, pleasant. I thought it would be rude not to come. Besides, I wanted to congratulate you on your sons. She emphasized the word deliberately, watched it land like a blow. Yes, well, Cade's eyes kept drifting to her boys, unable to help himself. Thank you. These are your children? My sons, Ashton, Cole, and Finn. Impossible. The word burst from a wolf in the crowd. Marcus, Cade's beta. Sarah was infertile. I said what the healers told me. Cade cut him off, but uncertainty flickered across his face. It's not possible for her to have children. And yet here they are. Maven's voice dripped sarcasm. Leanna stepped forward, her blue eyes narrowing as she studied Sarah's boys. How old? 3, 3, and 2. The math wasn't hard. Whispers erupted again. Wolves calculating dates, remembering when Sarah had been cast out. They could be anyone's, someone muttered. Rogue pups. Look at them. Another voice, sharper. Look at their colouring, their aura. Because it was unmistakable now. The boys stood in a small cluster, and dominance radiated from them like heat shimmer. Wolves twice their size were unconsciously maintaining distance, giving them space usually reserved for alphas. This is absurd. Leanna's voice rose, shrill with something that might have been fear. Cade, you said she couldn't have children. You said, Elder Mira. Cade's command cut through the noise. Examine them. Use your gift. It wasn't a request. Mira looked at Sarah, asking silent permission. Sarah nodded, though her stomach twisted. She knew what Mira would find. Everyone would know. The elder approached the boys slowly, non-threateningly. Hello, little ones. I'm just going to check something. Is that okay? Ashton studied her with those 2 old eyes, then nodded. You smell nice, like flowers. Mira smiled, but her expression was sad. She placed her hands on Ashton's head, then Cole's, then Finn's. Her gift worked differently than normal healing. She could read bloodlines, trace lineage, sense the truth of a wolf's heritage written in their very cells. The pack hall held its collective breath. Mira straightened slowly, turned to face Cade. Her voice, when she spoke, carried to every corner of the room. These children carry Silvercrest blood, alpha blood. She paused, letting that sink in. Specifically, they carry Alpha Cade's bloodline. There is no doubt, no possibility of error. Chaos erupted. Leanna's face went white, then red. No, that's... She lied. She said she was infertile. She trapped him. I never lied. Sarah's voice cut through the hysteria like a blade. Quiet, deadly calm. I was told I was infertile by your pack healers, by specialists. For 2 years I endured tests and treatments and remedies that did nothing. Then how? Cade's voice was strangled. Because I was never infertile. Sarah met his eyes, held them. I was poisoned. The silence that fell was absolute. Poisoned? Elder Mira's voice sharpened. What kind of poison? Wolfsbane, long-term, subtle doses. Just enough to disrupt my cycle, prevent conception, but not enough to make me visibly sick. Sarah had spent months researching after she'd discovered her pregnancy, desperate to understand. It's almost undetectable unless you're specifically looking for it. And why would you look? Everyone believed I was just broken. That's insane, Marcus said, but he sounded uncertain. Who would? A month after I left the pack, left Silvercrest territory entirely, I became pregnant. Sarah continued as if he hadn't spoken. Within weeks, my body healed. The symptoms I'd attributed to stress, the headaches, the fatigue, the nausea, all vanished. And 3 months later, I knew I was carrying Ashton. She turned, her eyes scanning the crowd, until they landed on exactly who she'd been looking for. Helena, Leanna's mother. The pack's former head of kitchens. The woman who'd overseen every meal prepared in the pack hall, who'd personally delivered Sarah's pregnancy tonics and wellness teas with such sympathetic smiles. The woman whose face had just gone ash-grey. No, Helena whispered. You made my tea, Sarah said softly. Every morning. Special blend, you said, to help with fertility, to strengthen my womb. I was trying to help, with wolfsbane mixed in just enough. Day after day, month after month, Sarah's voice remained eerily calm, even as rage burned in her chest. Tell me, Helena, how much did Leanna pay you? Or did you do it for free, knowing your daughter wanted to be Luna? Mama? Leanna's voice cracked. Mama, what is she talking about? But Helena's silence was damning. Guilt written across every line of her face. You poisoned her? Elder Mira's voice filled with cold fury. You deliberately poisoned your Luna, sabotaged the Alpha's bloodline for what? Ambition? She wasn't Luna material, Helena burst out, desperate. Look at her. Common blood, no Alpha heritage, barely strong enough to... She was my mate. Cade's roar shook the rafters. His Alpha command rolled through the room, forcing every wolf to their knees except Sarah, who had no pack bond to compel her. You poisoned my mate, made me believe she was defective, made me reject. He cut himself off, but the damage was done. The confession hung in the air. Sarah laughed, a bitter, broken sound. You rejected me because I couldn't give you heirs, called me worthless, severed our bond in front of everyone. She gestured at her sons. And 1 month later, I conceived. Naturally, easily, because there was nothing wrong with me. There never was. Sarah. Cade took a step toward her. Don't. The word cracked like a whip. You don't get to say my name. You don't get to look at them. You made your choice. I didn't know. You didn't care to know. You believed the worst of me, threw me away like garbage, and moved on within months. Sarah's composure finally cracked, 3 years of pain pouring out. I was your mate, Cade, your fated mate, and you discarded me without a second thought. Leanna was sobbing now, her perfect ceremony in ruins. Her mother was being held by 2 warriors, her guilt evident to everyone. The pack stood frozen, watching their Alpha face the consequences of his cruelty. Mama. Ashton tugged Sarah's dress, his voice worried. Mama, you're sad again. Sarah looked down at her son, at his beautiful face and concerned eyes, and felt her heart crack open. I'm okay, baby. Ashton growled. Not a cute puppy growl, a real growl. Deep and resonant and entirely wrong, coming from a 3-year-old's throat. His eyes flashed brilliant gold, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. The mean man made you cry. Ashton's voice came out distorted, his wolf rising. Made you hurt. Ashton, no, baby, calm down. But it was too late. Sarah watched in horror as her son's body began to shimmer. Impossible. He was too young. Wolves didn't shift until at least 5 years old, some not until 7 or 8. 3-year-olds didn't have the control, the strength, the... Bones cracked, fur erupted, and where Ashton had stood, a wolf appeared. Not a pup, a juvenile wolf, easily the size of a yearling, with a coat of pure silver that gleamed like moonlight on water. The silvercrest silver, the mark of Alpha lineage so pure, it only appeared once every few generations. The wolf's eyes, still Ashton's gold, fixed on Cade with unmistakable challenge. The pack hall erupted in shocked gasps, wolves stumbling backward. Even Cade looked stunned, his face pale, as he stared at the impossible creature his son had become. Sweet moon, Elder Mira breathed. He's got the silver coat. True, Alpha, silver. On the platform, Leanna held her twins, tiny, mewling infants who looked painfully ordinary in comparison. Normal wolves, healthy certainly, but without that indefinable quality of dominance that radiated from the 3-year-old wolf standing protectively in front of his mother. Ashton. Sarah knelt beside her son, her hands shaking. Baby, shift back. Can you shift back? The wolf whined, pressing against her. Still her baby, despite the impossible form. It's okay. You're okay, just breathe. Remember what I taught you about control? Another shimmer, and Ashton was human again, naked and crying as she wrapped him in her shawl. I'm sorry, Mama. I didn't mean to. I just got so angry and then... Shh, you're not in trouble. She held him close. her other arms gathering Cole and Finn, who looked simultaneously awed and frightened by what their brother had done. When she looked up, every wolf in the pack hall was staring at them, at her sons, at the undeniable proof of what they were. Not broken, not weak, not the inferior bloodline everyone had assumed. They were everything Cade had wanted, everything he'd thrown away when he'd called her worthless and severed their bond. "Well," Maven said into the ringing silence, her voice dry, "I think that settles the paternity question." Sarah met Cade's eyes across the room, saw the devastation there, the dawning realization of everything he'd lost, everything he'd destroyed with his cruelty and pride. "Congratulations on your ceremony, Alpha," she said quietly. "Your twins are lovely. I hope they bring you all the legacy you wanted." Then she turned, gathered her sons, and walked toward the door. Behind her, Lyanna's sobs echoed through the hall. Helena was being dragged away, and Cade stood frozen on his platform, holding his ordinary twins, watching the mother of his true heirs walk away with the sons he'd never known existed. The sons who carried the silver coat of ancient alphas, the sons who would have made the Silvercrest pack legendary. "Sarah, wait." Cade's voice broke. She didn't stop, didn't look back. She'd already wasted 3 years of tears on him. She wouldn't waste another moment. Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 3. The pack hall descended into pandemonium. Wolves shouted over each other, some defending their alpha, others demanding Helena's immediate punishment. Several younger wolves tried to follow Sarah out, calling for her to wait, to stay, voices overlapping in a cacophony of shock and confusion. Cade stood frozen on the platform, his world crumbling around him. The twins in Lyanna's arms wailed, sensing their mother's distress, but he couldn't move. Couldn't think past the image burned into his brain. That magnificent silver wolf where his 3-year-old son had stood. His son. 3 sons. 3 powerful, dominant, silver-blooded sons he'd never known existed because he'd been so certain, so absolutely convinced that Sarah was the problem. "Everyone quiet." His alpha command rolled through the hall, forcing silence. The power behind it made wolves drop their eyes, submit, but it felt hollow, meaningless. What good was authority when he'd destroyed everything that mattered? "Beta Marcus." Cade's voice came out hoarse. "Secure Helena." "Elder Mira, I want her examined by every gift we have. Truth speakers, memory readers, whatever it takes. I want to know everything." "Cade, please." Lyanna reached for him, her face blotchy with tears. "This is insane. My mother would never—" "Your mother just confessed." Elder Myra's voice cut like a blade. Her guilt was written across her face for everyone to see. "She's confused." The accusation shocked her. "Take Lyanna to her chambers." Cade couldn't look at her, couldn't bear to see the woman he'd chosen over his true mate. "Keep her there until we sort this out." "What? No. Cade, I'm your mate. I'm your Luna. You're the woman whose mother poisoned my true mate to make room for you." The words tasted like ash. "Get her out of my sight." 2 female wolves gently but firmly escorted Lyanna away, her protests echoing through the hall. The twins went with them, their cries fading into distance. Cade finally moved, stepping down from the platform. The pack parted for him automatically, but he barely noticed. His mind kept replaying the last 3 years. Sarah's desperate attempts to conceive, the healer's grim diagnoses, her increasing sadness. The way she'd started flinching when he touched her, as if she knew she was failing him, and he'd let her believe it, had believed it himself, had thrown her away like she was nothing. "The questioning chamber is prepared, Alpha." Marcus appeared at his elbow, his expression carefully neutral. Cade nodded and followed, the pack's leadership falling in behind him. Council members, elders, the pack's truth speaker. A wolf named Darius, whose gift could compel honesty from anyone. Helena sat in a chair in the centre of the room, her hands bound with silver-threaded rope. Not enough to burn, but enough to suppress her wolf, keep her contained. She looked small suddenly, older, the weight of her crime aging her before their eyes. "Helena," Darius stepped forward, his voice resonant with power. "Under pack law and the authority of the Alpha, you will answer truthfully. Did you poison Sarah Thorne with wolfsbane?" The compulsion in his words was absolute. Helena's mouth opened, tried to close, but the truth forced its way out. "Yes," the word came out broken. "For 18 months, small doses mixed in her morning tea, her supplements, sometimes in her food." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Even though they'd suspected, hearing it confirmed made it real. Horrifyingly, undeniably real. Kate's hands clenched into fists. "Why?" "Liana." Helena's voice cracked. "My daughter wanted to be Luna, deserved to be Luna. She was strong, fertile, perfect, alpha stock. But Cade was mated already, and Sarah was in the way." "So you poisoned her?" Eldamira's voice dripped disgust. "You systematically destroyed a mated pair's chance at happiness, at children, for your daughter's ambition?" "Sarah wasn't strong enough," Helena burst out, defensive even in confession. "She had no alpha blood, no special gifts. Liana would have been better. That wasn't your decision to make." Cade's roar shook the walls. His alpha power flooded the room, pressing down on everyone. "You interfered with a fated bond. You poisoned my Luna. You destroyed my children before they could even be conceived." Helena shrank back. But Darius wasn't done. "Did Liana know? Did she order you to do this?" Helena hesitated, and the compulsion tightened around her like a vice. "She knew I was helping. She asked me to make sure Sarah couldn't conceive. But she didn't know exactly how. She didn't want details." "Convenient." Marcus spat the word. "Bring Liana back." Cade's voice had gone cold. Dead. "Now." They dragged her in minutes later, still crying, her perfect hair dishevelled. She took one look at her mother and seemed to crumble. "Liana." Darius turned his power on her. "Did you know your mother was poisoning Sarah?" "No, I swear I didn't." But her voice wavered, unconvincing. The compulsion tightened. "Did you ask your mother to ensure Sarah remained infertile?" Liana's face contorted, fighting the truth speak. But it was useless. Yes, but I didn't know she'd poison her. I thought maybe some herbs, something natural to prevent conception. I didn't know about the wolfsbane." "But you knew your mother was sabotaging the Alpha's mate." Eldamira's voice could have frozen fire. "You participated in a conspiracy to destroy a fated bond." "I loved him." Liana's composure shattered completely. "I've loved Cade since we were 15. Sarah was nobody. Some random wolf from a minor pack that he just happened to meet. It wasn't fair. I was supposed to be Luna. I was perfect for him, perfect for the pack. She was just there." "She was his mate." Cade's voice broke on the word. "Chosen by the moon herself. And you?" He couldn't finish, couldn't articulate the magnitude of the betrayal. "I gave you sons," Liana said desperately. "Real sons, legitimate heirs. You gave me 2 ordinary pups." The cruelty in Cade's voice made several wolves flinch. "While my true mate bore 3 sons with alpha potential so strong they shifted at 3 years old. One of them has the silver coat, Liana, the mark of ancient alphas that hasn't appeared in Silvercrest in over a century." He stepped closer, his power making her cower. "You didn't give me heirs. You gave me replacements for what you helped steal from me. Cade, please. Get them both out of my sight. The council will decide their punishment." He turned away, unable to look at her anymore. "I need to find Sarah." "Alpha." Eldamira's voice stopped him. "You should know. The pack bond recognizes her as true Luna. Severing your personal mate bond didn't break the pack's recognition. Technically, legally, She never stopped being Luna of Silvercrest. The implications hit him like a physical blow. And her sons? Are your legitimate heirs, firstborn sons of the Alpha and his true Luna. Mira's expression softened slightly. The twins Lyanna bore you are, well, they would be considered secondary heirs at best. Illegitimate if the pack chooses to be harsh about it, since you took a chosen mate while your true mate still lived. Cade's world spun. He'd thought he was building a legacy, securing his line. Instead, he'd abandoned his real heirs, cast aside his true mate, and installed a manipulator in her place. I need to fix this. The words came out raw. I don't think you can, Marcus said quietly. But Cade had to try. He found Sarah at the pack's border guest house, the neutral territory where visiting wolves stayed. Maven answered his knock, her face hardening the moment she saw him. Absolutely not. I need to speak with her. You need to leave before I forget I'm a civilized wolf and rip your throat out. Maven's voice was pleasant, conversational, which somehow made the threat more effective. Please. The word felt foreign in Cade's mouth. 5 minutes. Maven, Sarah's voice came from inside. Let him in. Maven stepped aside reluctantly, her glare promising violence if he stepped out of line. Cade entered the small sitting room and stopped dead. Sarah sat on the couch, her 3 sons pressed against her like protective shields. They all stared at him with identical expressions of distrust and fear. Fear of him, the monster who'd hurt their mother. Sarah! Her name came out cracked. I'm sorry, I'm so... Stop. She held up a hand. I don't want apologies. They're empty. They're not. I was wrong. About everything. Helena confessed. Lyanna confessed. I know what they said. Maven told me. Sarah's voice remained eerily calm. You were tricked, manipulated, the poor Alpha, deceived by scheming women. That's not, isn't it? Her eyes finally met his, and the ice in them froze him solid. You believed I was broken without question, without investigation, without even considering that something might be wrong with the situation itself. The healers said what Helena told them to say. She controlled my care, Cade. She made sure I saw specific healers, used specific treatments, all while poisoning me. And you never once questioned it. Cade felt the truth of her words like knives. I should have believed in you, in us. You should have loved me enough to look deeper. Sarah's composure cracked slightly, pain bleeding through. Instead, you humiliated me, called me worthless in front of the entire pack, severed our bond like cutting a loose thread. I felt the bond break too, he said desperately, reaching for where their connection used to be. Nothing. Just emptiness, where she used to live inside his heart. It hurt me too. You chose that pain. You inflicted it on both of us. Her voice rose, finally showing emotion. I begged you to wait, to keep trying, to believe in us. And you chose easy over truth. You chose a fertile mate over your fated one. The boys tensed at her raised voice, all 3 moving to comfort her. The smallest one, Finn, glared at Cade with surprising venom. You made Mama cry, Finn said, his little voice shaking with anger. You're the mean man. Cade didn't know what to say to that. To his son who looked at him like an enemy. We don't need you, Ashton added, his gold eyes flashing. Mama's our only parent. You're nobody. The words hit harder than any physical blow. Cade sank into a chair, his legs suddenly weak. They're right. I was nobody when it mattered. But they're still my sons. No. Sarah's voice went hard as stone. They're my sons. You severed our bond, remember? That means you severed any automatic claim to children conceived after. Pack law is clear on that. That's not... But Cade's knowledge of pack law wavered. Was she right? Could he have forfeited his parental rights with the bond severance? Mama's right. Maven spoke from the doorway. I've already consulted with 3 different pack law experts. The moment you severed the mate bond, you terminated your rights to any future offspring. These boys are legally hers alone. That's insane. They're alpha-blooded. They're your alpha blood, which makes them threats to your new family, Maven continued. In fact, the Alpha Council is very interested in this situation. Interested enough that they're sending representatives to investigate. Cade's blood ran cold. You reported this to the council? Months ago. Maven's smile was sharp. The moment Sarah told me she was pregnant with your children, I filed a formal report about the bond severance, the suspicious infertility, all of it. The council moves slowly, but they're quite thorough. You had no right. I had every right to protect my friend and her children from an alpha who'd already thrown them away once. Maven stepped fully into the room, her dominance rising to meet his. The council takes bond breach very seriously, Cade. And heir abandonment? That's grounds for removal from alpha position. The room spun. His position, his pack, everything he'd built. I didn't know about them, he said desperately. How can I be guilty of abandoning children I didn't know existed? Because you should have known. Sarah's voice cut through his panic. You should have checked. Should have cared enough to find out if your rejected mate survived, if she was well, if anything changed after you cast her out. But you didn't. You moved on to Liana within months and forgot I existed. She was right. He'd been so eager to prove he'd made the right choice, to show the pack he didn't need his broken mate, that he'd never once checked on Sarah's well-being after the rejection. A sharp knock interrupted them. Eldamira entered, her expression grave. Alpha. The council representatives arrived ahead of schedule. They're requesting an immediate audience with all involved parties. Of course they were. Cade stood, trying to gather his authority, his dignity. Fine, let them. A commotion outside cut him off, shouting, the sound of a scuffle. Then Liana burst into the room, her face twisted with rage and desperation. Two warriors tried to grab her, but she was fast, driven by the frenzy of someone who'd lost everything. This is your fault, she screamed at Sarah. You ruined everything. You should have stayed gone. She lunged. Everything happened at once. Cade moved, but he was too far away. Maven shifted, but she was behind Liana. Wrong angle. The warriors reached, but Liana was already airborne, hands outstretched like claws aimed at Sarah's throat. And the boys moved. All three of them, simultaneously. Bones cracked. Fur exploded. 3 juvenile wolves appeared where 3 toddlers had stood. All of them silver. All of them radiating dominance that pressed down on every wolf in the room. They hit Liana mid-leap. Not hard enough to kill, but enough to send her sprawling. Enough to pin her to the ground. 3 sets of teeth bared at her throat. Their combined alpha pressure crashing over her like a tidal wave. Liana collapsed, forced into submission, unable to even shift under the weight of their power. She whimpered, every instinct screaming at her to bare her throat, to submit to the young alphas holding her life in their jaws. Cade stood paralyzed, watching his 3-year-old sons, wolves that shouldn't exist, shifts that shouldn't be possible, defend their mother with the ferocity of trained warriors. Boys. Sarah's voice cut through the tension, calm despite the violence. Let her go. She's not worth it. Reluctantly, the 3 wolves released Liana and padded back to their mother, pressing against her legs. Their eyes never left the threat, watching, ready to attack again if needed. Goddess, Eldamira breathed. All 3 of them. I've never seen anything like it. Cade hadn't either. Couldn't comprehend what he was seeing. 3 silver wolves, born of his blood and Sarah's strength, protecting the mate he'd discarded. His sons, his rejected sons, who would risk themselves to save their mother, while he'd done nothing, had just stood there, too slow, too useless. Get Liana out of here, Cade heard himself say. Keep her secured until the council arrives. The warriors dragged Liana away, her sobs echoing down the hallway. The 3 boys shifted back, naked and trembling from the exertion, and Sarah wrapped them in blankets Maven provided. "You're okay. You're all okay," she murmured, kissing their heads, checking them for injuries. "So brave, too brave. Don't ever scare Mama like that again." "She tried to hurt you," Ashton said, his voice small now, just a child again. "We had to protect you." "I know, baby, I know." Cade watched them, his family, his pack within a pack, and felt the full weight of what he'd thrown away. Not just a mate, but this fierce love, this protection, this bond that made 3 toddlers shift impossibly early to defend their mother. "The council representatives are waiting," Elder Mira said quietly. Sarah looked up, met Cade's eyes one last time. Good. Let them see what happens when alphas choose pride over truth. Then she stood, gathered her sons, and walked past him like he didn't exist. And Cade understood, with crystal clarity, that he'd lost her. Not just her presence, not just her love, he'd lost her completely. The bond was gone, severed by his own hand. The children were hers alone, protected by law and their own fierce devotion. He'd wanted a legacy. Instead, he'd destroyed one. The silver-coated heirs, who should have made Silvercrest legendary, would grow up knowing their father threw them away before they were even conceived. And there was nothing he could do to fix it. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 4. The Alpha Council chambers had been hastily assembled in Silvercrest's Great Hall, transforming the space where Cade had once rejected Sarah into a court of judgment. 5 council members sat in a semicircle, alphas from the most powerful packs in the region, their combined authority absolute. At the centre sat High Alpha Matthias, a wolf whose silver hair and ancient eyes spoke of centuries of leadership. His power filled the room like a physical presence, making even Cade's dominance feel small. Sarah sat on one side, with her sons and Maven. Cade stood alone on the other, his beta and elders behind him. Between them, in silver chains that burned their skin, knelt Lyanna and Helena. "This tribunal has heard testimony from all parties," Matthias announced, his voice carrying to every corner. "We have reviewed evidence, consulted pack law, and examined the accused with truth speakers. We are ready to render judgment." Sarah's hands clenched in her lap. Her boys pressed against her sides, Ashton on her left, Finn on her right, Cole in her lap. They'd been so brave through the questioning, telling the council about their life, their mama, the mean man who'd made her cry. "Helena Winters," Matthias's voice hardened. "You stand accused of poisoning a true Luna, sabotaging a fated bond, and conspiracy to undermine an Alpha's bloodline. How do you plead?" Helena's voice came out broken. "Guilty, High Alpha. Your crime is profound. You didn't just poison a single wolf. You poisoned the sacred institution of mate bonds, interfered with the moon's will, and caused immeasurable damage to innocent lives." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "The council sentences you to complete exile. You will be stripped of your pack bonds, marked as outcast, and forbidden from entering any recognized pack territory for the remainder of your days." Helena collapsed, sobbing. Exile was a death sentence for most wolves, to be cast out completely, with no pack protection, no family, wandering rogue territories until death claimed you. Lyanna Winters, now Thorn. Matthias turned his ancient gaze on her. "Your crime is more complex. You conspired with your mother, knowingly participated in sabotaging your Alpha's mate, and took a position that was not rightfully yours. However, you have borne the Alpha 2 children, which complicates matters." Cade's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. "The council sentences you to exile as well, but with a mercy your mother will not receive." Your mate bond with Alpha Cade will be severed by council magic. A clean break with none of the pain he inflicted on his true mate. You may take your children with you, and you will be granted settlement in the Eastern Territories under Alpha Zara's supervision. Lyanna's face went white. My children? Are yours to raise unless Alpha Cade contests this. The council recognizes they are innocents in your schemes. Matthias looked at Cade. Do you wish to keep the twins? Every eye in the hall turned to Cade. Sarah watched him struggle, saw the conflict on his face. Those were his children too. Blood of his blood, even if they weren't like her boys. No, Cade said finally, his voice rough. Let Lyanna take them. They deserve their mother, and I have no right to separate them. It was the right answer. Sarah thought distantly, perhaps the only truly unselfish thing Cade had done in years. So be it. Matthias gestured, and one of the council members, a woman with silver tattoos covering her arms, stepped forward. She placed her hands on Cade and Lyanna, and power fled bright enough to make everyone look away. When Sarah's vision cleared, both Cade and Lyanna were gasping, hands over their hearts. The forced bond between them had been severed, cleanly and completely. Take them, Matthias ordered, and warriors escorted both Helena and Lyanna from the hall. Lyanna clutched her twins, tears streaming down her face as she took one last look at the pack she'd schemed so hard to rule. Then they were gone, and only judgment for Cade remained. Alpha Cade Thorn. Matthias's voice grew colder. Your crimes are perhaps the most serious, because you held the most power and responsibility. You allowed poison to be administered to your true mate under your own roof. You publicly humiliated and rejected her based on assumptions rather than investigation. You severed a sacred mate bond, one of the highest crimes in wolf law, and you abandoned your true heirs before they were even conceived. Cade's face had gone ashen, but he held himself straight, accepting the condemnation. The council has debated your fate extensively. Some argued for your removal as Alpha. Others pointed out that you were deceived, manipulated by wolves you trusted. Matthias leaned forward. Here is our judgment. You will retain your position as Alpha of Silvercrest, but on strict probation. For 5 years, your decisions will be overseen by an appointed council representative. Any sign of similar neglect, any failure of judgment, and you will be removed permanently. It was a harsh sentence, essentially stripping Cade of autonomy, making him an Alpha in name, but not in true power. Sarah saw the humiliation in his eyes, the shame. Good. Part of her thought viciously, let him feel a fraction of what I felt. Additionally, Matthias continued, you will pay substantial reparations to Sarah Thorne for your abandonment. The amount will be determined by council assessors, but expect it to be significant. Cade nodded stiffly. Yes, High Alpha. Now. Matthias turned to Sarah, and his expression softened slightly. Sarah Thorne. You are the victim in this tragedy, and the council recognizes your suffering. We also recognize your strength, surviving alone, bearing and raising 3 powerful Alpha sons, building a life from nothing after losing everything. Sarah's throat tightened. She hadn't expected kindness from these ancient, powerful wolves. The council offers you an unprecedented choice. Matthias gestured, and a female council member, Alpha Zara, with kind eyes and grey-streaked hair, stepped forward. Option 1, Zara said gently. You reclaim your position as Luna of Silvercrest. Your mate bond with Alpha Cade can be reforged through council magic and ritual. It would take time and effort, require both parties' consent and dedication. But it is possible. Your sons would be raised as the pack's true heirs, and you would have your rightful place restored. Sarah's heart clenched. Everything she'd lost, offered back to her on a silver platter. Option 2, Zara continued. You take a substantial settlement, enough to live comfortably for life, full and complete custody of your sons, and the council's protection to settle anywhere you choose. You would be free to start fresh, build a new life, raise your boys away from the pain of this pack. Freedom, safety, a life unburdened by the past. You have time to decide, Matthias said. This is not a choice to be made lightly. Sarah started, but movement caught her eye. Cade had dropped to his knees. The hall went silent. An alpha kneeling was shocking enough, but Cade looked broken, truly, utterly broken. Sarah, his voice cracked on her name. I know I have no right to ask anything of you, no right to beg or plead or even speak your name, but please let me try to explain. There's nothing to explain. Her voice came out colder than she intended. You made your choice clear. I was wrong. I was so wrong. He looked up at her with red-rimmed eyes. I let pride and fear rule me. I believed the worst instead of fighting for the truth. I chose easy over you, and I will regret it every day for the rest of my life. Regret doesn't undo the damage. I know. He crawled forward, actually crawled, this powerful alpha reduced to desperation. I know nothing I say can fix what I destroyed. But I've met them now. Our sons. Ashton showed me his rock collection and told me about the injured bird he healed. Cole let me watch him draw pictures of wolves. And Finn, his voice broke. Finn asked me why I didn't love his mama. Tears burned Sarah's eyes. She blinked them back furiously. They're perfect, Cade whispered. Brilliant and strong and so full of love because you raised them. You did that alone, while I was here playing pretend with someone else's ambition. And I would give anything, my title, my pack, my life, for the chance to make it right. And you can't make it right. Sarah's composure cracked. You can't erase 3 years of pain. Can't undo the nights I cried myself to sleep wondering if I'd survive childbirth alone. Can't give back the bond you severed, the humiliation you caused, I know. His shout echoed through the hall. I know I can't. But please, Sarah, please don't take them away completely. Let me know them. Let me try to be the father they deserve, even if I can never be the mate you needed. Sarah looked at her sons. Ashton watched Cade with those 2 old eyes, assessing, judging. Cole had started crying silently, upset by the raised voices, and Finn had buried his face in her side, overwhelmed. Boys, she said softly, do you want to meet your half-siblings? All 3 looked up, confused. What siblings? Ashton asked. Alpha Cade has 2 other children, babies, twins. They're your half-brothers and sister. Oh, Ashton considered this. Are they nice? Despite everything, Sarah almost smiled. They're too young to be anything yet. They're just babies. Can we see them? Cade's face lit with desperate hope. Would you let me introduce you properly? Sarah nodded slowly, and Cade made a gesture. A nursemaid entered with the twins, tiny, mewling infants who looked painfully ordinary compared to Sarah's powerful boys. Ashton approached first, studying the babies with scientific interest. They're small. You were small once too, Sarah reminded him. They smell like him. Cole pointed at Cade. Like us. Like family. They are family, Sarah said carefully. They're your half-siblings. You share a father. Finn looked up at Cade, his young face serious. Are you our daddy? The word daddy, not father or alpha, seemed to destroy something in Cade. He knelt to Finn's level, his voice gentle. I'd like to be, if you boys would let me. You made Mama cry, Ashton said bluntly. A lot. She thought we didn't know, but we did. I know, I'm sorry. Sorry isn't enough. Ashton crossed his small arms, looking remarkably like a miniature alpha passing judgment. You have to earn us, mister. You have to prove you won't make Mama cry again. Cade's breath caught. How do I do that? I don't know yet. But you have to figure it out. Ashton glanced at his mother. Mama deserves someone who won't throw her away. Out of the mouths of babes, Sarah thought, her heart breaking and healing simultaneously. The council watched this exchange with various expressions, some moved, some calculating, all intensely interested in this unprecedented situation. Finally, Matthias spoke. "Sarah Thorne, have you reached a decision?" Sarah looked around the hall, at Cade, still kneeling, hope and desperation warring on his face, at her sons, so strong and brave and perfect, at the pack members lining the walls, watching this drama unfold. She felt the phantom pull where her mate Bond used to be, a ghost of what they'd had, a possibility of what they could rebuild. Part of her wanted it, wanted to say yes, to reclaim everything that had been stolen. But the larger part remembered the pain, the humiliation, the absolute despair of discovering her pregnancy alone and terrified. Remembered crying herself to sleep, wondering if her babies would survive, if she would survive. Remembered that Cade had a choice, investigate or reject, and he'd chosen rejection without hesitation. Option B, she said clearly, with modifications. Cade's face crumpled, but she continued. "I'll take the settlement and full custody, but I won't leave the region entirely. I'll settle in the border territory, close enough that my sons can know their heritage, their half-siblings, their pack. When they're older, when they're adults, they can choose whether to claim their birthright as Silvercrest heirs." She looked at Cade. "You may visit, may try to build a relationship with them, but I will not rebond with you, will not be your Luna. That bridge was burned, Cade, and I won't rebuild it on ashes and apologies." "But," Cade started. "No." Her voice held finality. "You want to prove yourself? Then prove it through action, not words. Prove you can be a father without the guarantee of having me as your mate. Prove you value your sons for themselves, not as a path back to me." It was harsh, but fair. And from the approving nods of several council members, they thought so too. "The council accepts these terms," Matthias announced. "Sarah Thorne will receive a settlement of $500,000, full custody of her sons, and protection to establish herself in the border territory. Alpha Cade will be granted supervised visitation rights to be expanded based on his conduct and the children's comfort." "Thank you." "Hi, Alpha." Sarah stood gathering her boys. "When do we leave?" "Within the week, we'll help you establish your sanctuary." Sanctuary. Yes, that's what she'd call it. A place of healing, for herself and others. As the tribunal dissolved, wolves began filing out, but something strange happened. One by one, pack members approached Sarah. Not Cade, not the council, her. They knelt, bowing their heads in a gesture of deep respect. "What are you doing?" Sarah asked the first, a young warrior named Thomas. "Honoring the mother of true heirs," he said simply. "You bore the Silvercoats. You raised them alone when our Alpha failed. You deserve our recognition, Luna or not." More followed, elders, warriors, mothers with children, even some who'd watched her crawl from the hall 3 years ago in humiliation. They bowed, acknowledged, accepted. Not as Luna, as something more fundamental, the mother who'd survived, who'd protected the pack's future even when the pack had rejected her. Sarah's throat tightened with emotion. "I'm not your Luna." "No," Eldamira said, joining the procession, "but your sons are our future. Whether you return or not, whether they choose to claim Silvercrest or not, they carry our bloodline forward. The Silvercoats, the early shifts, the power, that's Silvercrest's legacy, and you protected it when no one else did." Even some of Cade's most loyal followers bowed. The message was clear. Lyanna's twins might exist, but Sarah's sons were the true heirs in every way that mattered. Cade watched it all, his face a mask of grief and pride. Grief for what he'd lost, pride for what his sons had become despite his absence. When the last wolf had paid respect, Sarah gathered her boys and headed for the door. Maven at her side, she didn't look back. "Sarah," Cade's voice stopped her one last time. "Thank you for letting me try." She didn't turn around. Don't thank me. Thank them if they decide you're worth knowing." Then she was gone, leaving Cade alone in the hall where he'd once thrown away everything that mattered. 6 months later, the sanctuary of Silver Moon sat nestled in the border forest, a beautiful compound of healing rooms, training grounds, and living quarters. Sarah had poured the settlement money into it, creating a place where rogue wolves, injured pack members, and lost souls could find help. It thrived. Word spread quickly about the gifted healer with 3 powerful sons, and wolves came from across the region seeking her services. Today, Sarah knelt in her herb garden, teaching Ashton about healing plants. Cole was inside painting, and Finn was. "Cade's here." Finn's shout made her look up. Sure enough, Cade's truck pulled up the drive. He came every Saturday now, had for months, slowly building trust with his sons. The first visits had been awkward, painful. The boys had ignored him, hidden behind Sarah, refused to engage. But Cade had persisted. Brought toys they ignored, told stories they pretended not to hear, simply sat with them in silence when they wouldn't talk. Slowly, glacially, they'd warmed to him. Ashton had been first, unable to resist showing off his rock collection to someone who actually knew the geological names. Then Cole had shyly asked if Cade wanted to see his drawings, and Finn, her baby, had eventually climbed into Cade's lap during a story, falling asleep against his chest. Now they called him Cade instead of Mr. or the mean man. Small progress, but progress nonetheless. Sarah watched from the garden as her sons ran to greet him, watched Cade's face light up, genuine joy radiating from him as he caught them in hugs. He'd changed, grown quieter, more humble, quicker to listen than command. "The famous patience of a reformed alpha," Maven commented, appearing at Sarah's side. "Think he'll ever win them over completely?" "Maybe." Sarah stood, brushing dirt from her knees. "He's trying. Actually trying." "And you?" Maven's eyes were knowing. "Still feeling that phantom bond?" Sarah's hand went to her chest unconsciously. Sometimes, late at night, she felt it. A whisper of what had been, a possibility of what could be. The council had said the bond could be reforged, but it would require both of them, willing and committed. "I don't know," she admitted. "Part of me wants to believe people can change, that we could. But I remember. The old pain surfaced, never far below. I remember crawling out of that hall, remember the fear, the loneliness, and I'm terrified of giving him the power to hurt me like that again." Maven squeezed her shoulder. "You don't have to decide today, or this year, maybe not ever. You're allowed to just exist." Sarah watched Cade lift Finn onto his shoulders, the boy giggling as they walked toward the house. Watched her other sons trail along, chattering about their week, comfortable now in their father's presence. It was enough. For now, it was enough. Whether it would ever be more, whether she could ever trust him with her heart again, whether a shattered bond could be reforged into something stronger, that was a question for another day. Today she had her sanctuary, her sons, and the hard-won peace of survival. Tomorrow would tell its own story. Epilogue. In the garden, hidden from view, a small silver wolf pup watched the reunion. Not Sarah's sons. They were inside. This pup was different, its eyes ancient and knowing. The moon watched her children through many eyes, and she had watched this story unfold with particular interest. A bond severed could be reforged, yes, but it would not be the same bond. It would be something new, forged not by fate's mandate, but by choice, by effort, by 2 wolves deciding every day to build something from ruins. The question was not whether they could. The question was whether they would. The silver pup smiled, if wolves could smile, and faded into moonlight, leaving only a whisper on the wind. "Choose well, my children. Choose with both head and heart. The moon blesses all paths forward, but some require more courage than others. And in the house, as Cade played with his sons and Sarah watched from the doorway, something flickered in the space between them. Not quite a bond, not quite nothing. Just a possibility, waiting. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe and like this video to continue listening to this type of story daily, and also to appreciate this community too. I would like to know the country in which you are in, listening to this story. Which country is that? Please comment below.